Hello everyone and welcome to week 5. This week opens up a new unit for our course that helps introduce you all to the main functional areas that you can expect to find in any library. These are the areas that help operate the library and provide the services and resources that are made accessible to a library community. So the first that we'll be covering in week 5 is technical services. Then we'll move on to public services, followed by classifying the collection, and we'll round out this unit in week 8 with information services. You also learned last week that there are a number of different job titles that fall under the library support staff classification, right? So library technician is one example of a library support staff position, but many of you found that there are other titles that fall under this type of work. This week we'll be learning more about one of the functional areas that is supported by library technician positions called technical services. A functional area describes a set of professional activities carried out by library support staff and librarians. Technical services includes job duties like acquisitions, cataloging, collection management, and interlibrary loan. While most of these duties are carried out by the library technician, there's usually at least one librarian who helps coordinate the workflows of that type of work. At Neely Library, our library technicians in technical services share an office where all of the acquisitions, cataloging, book repair, and interlibrary loan duties are performed. I'll show you on the map where their office is located so that you can get an idea of this kind of behind the scenes environment. Here under about the library, policies and general information, you will find the floor plan for the library. This is the entrance here. And here's our circulation desk. This is the hub for public services. And then technical services is all the way back here in a room that doesn't have really any interaction with the public. I mentioned this because this can give you an idea of what the work environment is like for library technicians working in technical services. Next, let's take a look at what you have coming up for week 5. So this week you have some readings from chapter 4 and a couple videos that I've included here that cover some of the processes for book binding and book repairs. Then you have a journal and a discussion for the week. There is some information about the final project coming up at the end of the semester and a heads up for a library technician interviews assignment. Your reading for this week brings up a very important point about how libraries staff the technical services functional area or department. If you look at this page right after the introduction, it's called Contributing to Collection Management and Technical Services. I noticed that in last week's discussion, some of you were surprised to find that there are full-time positions dedicated to a single function, like acquisitions or interlibrary loan, and that's true. If a library is large enough, there may be a need for a position where the main job responsibility is just acquisitions, or it's just interlibrary loan. It might just be cataloging, right? So that means that there's one person who has enough work to justify a single position being dedicated to those job duties. At SAC, our technical service department has one library technician position that does acquisitions and interlibrary loan, and one other library technician position that does all of the cataloging and book repair. These dedicated positions aren't always the case for smaller libraries. A smaller library might have one library technician that does all of those things. The staffing pattern at each library depends on how much time is needed per week to meet the needs of that particular functional area. And of course, this depends on funding. For this week's journal, you're being asked to learn the definitions of these terms listed here and explain them to me in your own words. I do provide some tips on how to take a written definition from the chapter readings and turn that into your own explanation for the term. So please do not submit any direct quotes. This really is about you absorbing the information and building a knowledge base about the different functions of the library. You'll also be taking a look at some examples of collection development policies and learning to identify the common sections of any collection development policy. This week's discussion will help you continue to build familiarity with library services and resources. For the first part of this discussion, you'll be selecting a library of your choice and reviewing its services and resources by exploring its website. Because this is an online class, you have the option of finding out what services and resources are provided by your chosen library just through the website. But if you want to actually physically visit a library and explore the services and resources that way, you're welcome to do this assignment in person. I want to clarify that this is not another review of a library website like we did in groups during week 3. Instead, you're using the library website to find out what kind of services and resources are provided. In addition to finding out what is offered by the library, I want you all to discuss how these services and resources support the library's mission. For the second part of the discussion, you're asked to start to think about what kind of library you'll be creating for the final project. Please refer to the final project brief introduction page at the bottom of Module 5 for some preliminary information about the final. Here you'll be sharing some of your first thoughts about what your dream library could look like. This really is just a time to start brainstorming about the final. Please don't worry that you might be locking in some of your choices at this point. You'll definitely have time to reconsider or change your mind. This discussion really is about getting more examples of the kinds of services and resources offered by different types of libraries and thinking about what kinds of services and resources a new dream library could provide. Just wanted to point out again that you do have the introduction to the final project here at the bottom of the module. And then I am giving you the introduction to the library technician interviews now so that you can have time to reach out to libraries and library technicians, schedule your interviews, and prepare for those interviews. I hope this week is a little bit lighter for everyone, and I hope that you have time to prepare for your next assignment due in week 6. Have a good week and let me know of any questions you may have via Canvas inbox. Okay, bye.